The NFL season's over, and I'm back from hiatus, and I'm still holding this microphone like this. Going to go over my predictions from what they were before the season started, how they are now, and the fact that both of my teams are still in the running for my Super Bowl prediction. Is it going to be the same? We'll make it work. Anyways, roll that introduction.
To the players, reality is one against one, move and counter move, helmet to helmet. Nowhere is this conflict more evident than at the fringe of battle where the receiver and cornerback match glares. Here, cunning and speed determine the victor. One-on-one, the battle where the loser bleeds alone on an open field.
What might have been the most rigged NFL season due to some of the questionable outcomes in some games, such as Jacksonville beating Buffalo and Jacksonville beating Indianapolis yesterday. It all culminated last night with one of the best games in years that could have ended in a tie and would have saved the world from watching Ben Roethlisberger dump off 5-yard passes and get blown out by 50 in his going-away game, supposedly. I still think he'll be back because that franchise is garbage. So we'll start off with the AFC East, and my prediction was right. Buffalo ended up doing what was necessary to win the division, even though I had them at 14-3. They ended up finish 11-6, won the division. Miami finished 9-8. After I had Miami pigeonholed at 11-6, they ended up finishing 9-8. Started off very weak, got through the season, went on a tear. They had a lot of easy opponents. And now their coach is gone after finishing 9-8 and going on a tear, only being there 3 years. Brian Flores is gone, probably the hottest candidate for a head coach right now as of Black Monday. The Jets faltered more than I expected. I was hoping something would go better with what they had in the coaching lineup, but they're the Jets. And honestly, they got like 3 fluke wins against like really good teams this year that just should not have happened. And it goes down to this being the most rigged year in football. But, yep, the Patriots, somehow Mac Jones worked out. They looked more like the Patriots of old. Finishing 10-7, far from the 6-11 that I had them lined up to finish. They'll actually play in the first round of the playoffs. Buffalo will host. So technically that's for the division, but really, the Bills won the division based for the regular season. AFC North was quite the flip-flop. The Bungles, of all teams, with second-year quarterback Joe Burrow, took the division kind of up and down early on and then just went on a tear while the rest of the teams in the division fell back. Cleveland completely tanked. Questions about Baker Mayfield coming back, although they're saying now that he will, but it's way too early. Russell Wilson comes calling or some other quarterback. They're going to go do their thing. So we had Pittsburgh sneak in last night at 9-7-1 with their one tie coming against the hapless Lions. That's the luckiest way to get in the playoffs. It's really stupid. The NFL wants the Steelers in the playoffs. That's all there is to it. They got to have those ratings. It doesn't matter if it's just like it was last year where they get completely embarrassed. People are going to tune in for Pittsburgh because their fan base is, quote-unquote, travels well, versus somebody like the Dolphins or the Jets or, the Colts, something like that. The team is not good, and it just gives them a narrative. They got blew out. They're going to play the Chiefs in the first round. They got blew out by the Chiefs last week or the week before, like absolutely dismantled. They shouldn't be in this position. You can thank the Colts for that, but you can really thank the NFL for that. So my prediction, with the Bengals winning the division, had them going last but seeing improvements. Had them at 6-11. They ended up finishing 10-7, winning the division. Hosting the playoff game, they'll play the Raiders, which will be really fun, I think, if the Raiders show up. The Raiders have definitely showed up the last 2 weeks, whereas the Colts have not. I had Schittsburg at 6-11 with that same record at the bottom. They, of course, somehow are 9-7-1, and they'll get just about as far as they got last year, and just about as far as you can throw Ben Roethlisberger. Baltimore was fairly close in my assessment. I had them 9-8. They went 8-9. I kind of just say that it was nice seeing the well-rounded number last week with 16 games. Just like we don't need 7 playoff teams, we don't need 17 games. But yesterday was pretty entertaining. But even if it was typical 16-game schedule, the same thing would have happened basically. So, but kudos to the Bungles. Of course, the Browns might as well be the new Bungles. Had them at 12-5, being dominant. They started hot, and then they just fell off a cliff. Yeah, they've had injuries, but Browns are going to Browns. That's what it comes down to. It last year was their year to make noise. We'll see if they rebound next year. I'm not sure that locker room is intact with Stefanski as coach. Obviously, Beckham left for the Rams. So they got that out of there. They had like one hot game after that, and like, oh, that's all he needed. And then, no, that wasn't it. They faltered down the stretch. 2-6 on the road. Got to win those road games. But anyways, it's nice to see a team like the Bungles do their thing and step up. Hopefully it's not a one-off for them. Burrow is the most sacked quarterback in the NFL this year. I looked at the stats earlier. That's not going to hold up well, but that says a lot for how good that team is, and that Jamar Chase was completely who I thought he wasn't going to be, and is possibly going to be the most prolific receiver in the NFL. If he stays healthy, if he keeps his head in the game and shit. The game they had last week against the Chiefs, where he went off for 200 yards, it was an insane performance. So I'm starting to realize this is getting long-winded, so we're going to speed this along some. AFC South. The order, almost right. Titans 11-6 was the prediction. Titans end up finishing the top seed of 12-5. Pretty damn close. I was hoping the Colts were going to do what I said they were going to do, which was almost to the T, but then the NFL showed up in the last week of the year, and then they shouldn't have lost to the Raiders. 2-3 weeks ago, they were my pick for the Super Bowl, but Titans got Henry coming back. Colts finished 9-8, and I had them finishing 9-8. So the only difference is, I think I had the Colts get in the playoffs. Maybe they just missed it. I'll have to double check that. But either way, I basically got that one right. Trevor and the Jaguars were a dumpster fire. Urban Meyer's gone. I had them at 5-12, and that was too nice. They finished last place, 3-14. I'll have the second pick in the draft after them in the Lions won yesterday. And then we had the Texans, 4-13, maybe the most boring football team to watch this year. Finished 4-13, and I had them at 3-14. So I believe they're picking third. The AFC West wasn't too far off. Chiefs did take a step back, and they started slow. But when you look at the final record they actually had at 12-5, wasn't that much of a falter. I had them at 11-6. They still fell off. I was still right. Chargers, my prediction was 10-7. They shouldn't have lost to the Texans. That was just a dumbfounding game that makes no sense to me. Another rigging. So we had the ultimate game between them and the Raiders last night. And the Raiders were going for the tie. They said it, but then for some reason, Chargers and Staley took a timeout. Raiders went for the first down, got it, and then kicked the field goal and won the game. Raiders finished 10-7. I had them at 7-10. And then the Donkeys, I had them at 8-9, which I'm still unsure of why. They weren't that good of a football team, and they ended up finishing 7-10. Chargers missed the playoffs. Raiders get in. So, kind of close. Now we move on to the NFC least, and the future Washington Admirals let me down. Had them at 9-8. They finished 7-10. Dallas ran away with the division at 12-5. They still haven't really beaten anybody good this year. They're going to be one and done. Eagles were the surprising team, but I do remember saying before the season started, they're going to be really good or really bad. You couldn't tell. And when you watch them every weekend, you still can't tell what you're watching. I had them at 5-12. They ended up making the playoffs at 9-8. I'll take the L on that one. I also gave the Giants too much benefit of the doubt. Finishing 4-13, complete dumpster fire. and I had them at 6-11. So again, I'll take the L on that. Hopefully the Washington Admirals, or whatever they're going to name themselves, will step up next year. Moving on to the NFC North, and yes, the king of fraud, Karen Frogers, ran away with the division, 13-4. Had them 11-6. He's actually hurt some this year. Chicago's the one I took the L on. That's probably my biggest L outside the Panthers, which we'll get to in a second. But I had them win the division. Now Matt Nagy is gone. Justin Fields looks like garbage. Can't stay healthy, and that team is just lost. The Vikings at 8-9. I had that as a prediction. Well, the Bears finished 6-11 to go on that. Got the Vikings right, and I'm just now realizing that. They were -1 on their net point differential. Probably the most average team in football. And now Mike Zimmer's gone. There's too much talent on that team for that team to not be good. And hey, I get the Lions. Well, I give the Lions a benefit of the doubt. I had them at 5-12. They have the top pick in the draft. I still think the Lions are better than the Jaguars, better than the Jets, and better than the Panthers. Moving on to the NFC South and the division of Tom Brady. I had them at 12-5, and they superseded me, going 13-4. Yeah, I don't know if there is as much trust with them going all the way, but it's the playoffs, and usually the same thing just plays out. Saints at 9-8, came down to the last week. They've been a conundrum. I had them at 7-10, kind of close. They definitely took a fall off after Drew Brees retired. Falcons, I have no idea how they finished 7-10. I saw them play the Patriots live. They got shut out 25-0. They look terrible in all their games. Every time you see highlights, they're getting beat. But then you look at their record, and they're a little bit less than mediocre. Speaking of mediocre, the Carolina Panthers are tanking for the next 10 years. I don't know what player they know in middle school is going to be great in 2030. They finished 5-12. The owner has no idea what they're doing. The coach is awful. The GM is awful. And we're stuck with Sam Darnold. So I had them at 9-8 in a playoff appearance. That was a flop. A lot of people did, though. So I'm going to say I break even on that one. No L. Finally, we get to the NFC West. And I overestimated some and underestimated some. Cardinals had a strong season. They were the last undefeated team. Kind of cooled off towards the end. They ended up finishing 11-6. I had them 8-9. Yeah, I'm not going to claim a complete L on that, but they definitely stepped up, but they're still playing the same thing where they start hot and then they falter towards the end. The Rams, though, look great. I got them on the nose at 12-5, except for the fact that they actually won the division. Now, my NFC contender that is still alive are the San Francisco 49ers. They finished 10-7. I had them at 13-4. Kind of have a little bit of dry spell in there, but they're still built to win. Now, another dumpster fire comes in the way of the Seattle Sea Chickens. 9-8, and I was clearly overestimating. They were going to fall further. Finishing 7-10, don't know the future of the coach, don't know the future of the quarterback. At this point, that window is long shut, and they need to cut ties and rebuild. But they're grasping onto something that's not there anymore. Now for how my Super Bowl prediction will still play out. So the Bills play the Patriots Saturday night, 8:15. Home game. Didn't work out last time at home because of the weather situation. But it worked out on the away game. Same thing will happen this time. Bills will win at home. They'll beat the Patriots. So if they win, most likely they'll play Kansas City. Pittsburgh's not beating Kansas City. So they'll go to Kansas City. They'll beat Kansas City. That's all there is to it. And I'd say it'd be nice to see a Cinderella go on a run like Cincinnati. I'm changing my mind right now. I do think Cincinnati ends up in the conference championship, but Buffalo's got that experience. They win, they go in, and they're in the Super Bowl. It got dark all of a sudden. The Niners, you think, would be tougher for them to get there, but not necessarily. They play the Cowboys, who don't have a win over a 10-win team all year long. They play in a terrible division. Cowboys going to choke. Niners, Garoppolo, Shanahan, even Trey Lance are going to go in and take care of business. After that, most likely, they'll end up playing Green Bay because they're lower seed. Rodgers is going to choke. That's what he does every year. He'll be like, he'll win the MVP when he doesn't deserve the MVP, and the Niners will beat him. And then they'll actually go back and play the Rams because the Rams will beat Tom Brady in Tampa. They destroyed Brady earlier in the season. Can't take that pass rush, and Tampa is severely depleted. You're going to get the Rams and the Niners in the NFC Championship, and the Niners already proven this past weekend that they can beat the Rams. Stafford's also prone to to being a choke artist. He leads the league in interceptions with 17, tied with Trevor. So there you go. Niners, Bills, Super Bowl. It's still going to happen.